There's short ones where this is going to be longer, more extended. Should get out my phone because I do have notes and stuff written down for what I wanted to say. But let's just get to some of the stuff. Oh, my phone's about to die too, apparently. Hold on. I don't know who's... okay. Anyways, I never felt like stuff was complimentary. And I want to say this at the beginning, too. I mean, I have a video coming out, but people... what happened to the days of, like, people being the equivalent of, like, Angry Joe, where they fought against, like, you know, microtransactions or unfinished games? Why do people have to apologize for what the game company did, especially if they're boasting before the patches are even available and before the game even gets into its new DLC? Both Angry Joe and Yang Yi, I believe, covered this on AGS News, and I don't like Angry Joe. But the company, at least, and not everybody, there are definitely hardworking people at CD Projekt Red, but they were blaming the consumers and the players for the state the game originally was in. We shouldn't be apologizing for what the game company did, as well as we shouldn't be having the mentality, if you use, for example, what Radical Soda said in his beginning and ending, but applied that to CD Projekt Red, and who the hell is walking up to me right now? What the frick? Hello? Oh, you're an asshole, I see. Won't be once I beat you up. But, if you use what he says in the beginning of his video and apply that to CD Projekt Red and Cyberpunk, like his beginning and outro stuff that he talks about in his Sonic Colors Ultimate review, then yeah, that deeply still applies. We shouldn't be having the mentality of expecting a game to be better weeks, or in this case, years later, and be like, oh, don't worry, the game will be patched. The game will be patched. Frick off. This game was 8 to 9 years in development. And they made comic books and an anime within that time, instead of focusing on the frickin' game. They were too busy with that stuff. And also, like, you shouldn't be apologizing for these frickin' companies. What is wrong with people? Like, and once again, not everybody, even within a fan base, is a problem. Like, that was Angry Joe's big fault when he was implying that the entirety of a fan base, like the Night's Watch fan base, were all dumbasses, when there were clearly fans of even Angry Joe amongst those people too. And he was basically categorizing them all in one group. And I feel like some people, like a certain YouTube channel I won't name, has done that over the whole Cyberpunk stuff. And it sucks. So, anyways, getting to the actual stuff, because I want to get that out of the way. Also, can I just add, seriously, what happened to when we fought against games doing that kind of bad decision-making and stuff? Now we're actually rooting for it? Have we become the very evil we sought to destroy? And realize that not everybody's going to have the attention span or think the way a game reviewer or somebody actually thinking as deep as like Radical Soda or whatever when talking in depth about a game. Not everybody's going to see or think that way. I'm just adding to it. You're the one watching and viewing. So just realize that when going in. I have some shorter videos coming out. I don't know if they're as in-depth as I wanted them to be. I feel like hopefully this live stream will do that more so, because I also have notes that I've written down that I want to read. But I don't feel like... I want to get into the meat, but I don't feel like a lot of the other elements of the game... Was that the Headless Horseman? Complement the rest of the game. Like, take for example the gunplay. I think the gunplay and the gameplay, what they did with the perks and stuff, are really good in Cyberpunk. But because of how empty the world is and how far and few between enemies are, the world does not actually react to you. I don't think people know what that actually means. Like, just because you point a gun or antagonize the police or civilians and police aren't enough. You need more. I think the game kind of needed random encounters, as well as, even though I'm not always seeing it because it's like the freaking synth meat and the animals don't exist in that universe. Like, I didn't think about that originally. I knew about it because I remembered the gecko thing, but that's like only in one of those beginnings of the game, and that doesn't even matter to the rest of the game anyways, those making those choices. But for what your character is in the beginning, it doesn't really matter to the dialogue later. You just kind of just say a street kid or nomad thing, and that's it. You still have to choose the yellow dialogue options to progress. And like Beat 'em Up said with his when you go to meet a certain character later in the game, you kind of want to tell them you want to meet somewhere else, but the story kind of says, no, screw you, we're doing it this way, and you have to kind of play it out that way, sadly. And there's a lot of problems that Salt Factory brought up with Outer Worlds that I feel, as well as stuff with Mass Effect Andromeda, that I feel apply to the way Cyberpunk handles its dialogue system, as well as this, because it's so heavily focused on the story, but it's not a game like a Naughty Dog game. It feels like the story is super focused on, but also feels separated from the rest of the world. Like the stuff that reacts to you and interacts with you in the story is not the same stuff that reacts and interacts with you in the world. Take for example, I hate to use Starfield because everybody's apparently hating on that game so much. You either hate it or you love it, the internet. And with all your passionate hate or love. But, like, take, for example, you join the gang members in Ebside, or choose between the UC or Crimson Fleet, or have, you connect yourself with the religion of the Valruin, or even the Starborn coming after you later, as you progress the story. Oh, hello. But, like, that's reacting to you. You have thugs that come after you. I think I can tell him. Okay. Okay. But because of stuff like that, I'm going to follow you. But because of stuff like that, it just doesn't feel like the world and the story are in the same place. Also, the name Cyberpunk I'll get to later, but I feel like it's a lie too. Manly Reviews has covered some really good stuff on that. But yeah, I just don't feel like they're one and the same. Let's actually get up my notes here while we're following this guy. Oh, he's taking a turn. He probably just disappears somewhere anyways. But let's get up my notes. I might lose track of this guy as I'm trying to get up my notes because it's going to be up in my face. I had a lot to say, by the way. The reason I made smaller videos... Oh, what the hell? Oh, it's Rollers. Hello. This is kind of what the game needed. Even if you don't have animals in your world, you needed, like, you needed, like, drone traffic, more flying car traffic. It kind of makes sense why there's cars in the game, because if you were just to walk everywhere, you'd probably be like, oh, the map's freaking worse than I thought, as well. You'd realize its design is worse, as well as you'd have the same complaints you're seeing people complain about Starfield. It kind of makes sense why they put cars. Doesn't make it feel any less empty, though. But because of that stuff, it just doesn't feel part of the world. The world feels so empty, having great gameplay but barely enemies because they're so far and few in between, and you have to provoke them or literally go up in their face to get, unless it's in a scripted story sequence. Also, stealth is trivialized by being able to see through walls and stuff. Like, I kind of wish the game had third person, honestly. I know that's been complained about before, but why was Metal Gear and Splinter Cell given the camera angles they were? Because they were designed well. They gave you more options, and they knew that was going to not trivialize stealth. As well as it makes it so that, like, stealth Stealth has problems when you're just going from seeing through walls. It makes the stealth too easy or predictable or whatever. It's just not as fun. And I would think people would be sick of the whole seeing through walls thing anyways, because every other game does it. Frickin' Eagle Vision is Assassin's Creed. Batman with whatever the frick its vision is called in the Arkham games. Like, I would think people would be sick of it just like they were with turret sections and QuickTime events back in the day. And you're still paying when it comes, even if the DLC is really good, like, you're still paying a majority of your money towards the full game, whether you bought it back in the day or not, because the $70 thing, you're still contributing $40 of that towards the main game. And it's got these lackluster, not so complimentary elements. The gameplay is awesome, but the fricking enemies in the empty-ass world don't complement it. You have to provoke the civilians, and even then they don't attack back, they mostly run away. The only ones that attack back, and it's not even the most fun police system before its fun factor gets lost after a while, and pretty easily, where you just don't care about the cops chasing you anymore. Like, the cops are the only thing there. Like, other than you wish more of that gang members wandering around or chasing you down or something, or maybe somebody has a bounty on your head, would happen more in the main game. That doesn't happen, or happen enough if it does. The story in the game's world and people in it don't feel like they're one and the same. You can tell that when people have conversations, like the one Asmongold, for example, was watching with the guy talking about, I can't remember exactly what it was. Who are you? Okay. You can tell that that was meant to play at that moment, where it's more random when certain things play at certain moments in other games, other open world games. It's not quite as scripted feeling or obvious. There are definitely moments where a game reminds you it's a game, but goddamn, I never noticed it as bad as in Cyberpunk. And because there's not much replay value to Cyberpunk when it comes to even the dialogue system, because most of your choosing the first three things, you don't really have an effect on anything else. The only part of the game that's different is the beginning. And you can play Judy, Panam, and all those other people's missions through, with the only difference of wanting to do a replay of the game being romance options, who you romance. Otherwise, there's not much else variation in replay value. The only other thing is stuff like Judy being betrayed or not betrayed, but you have to, like, in the mindset, either you're gonna look up what it is, what the cutscenes are, or freaking stuff like they're also stinking like restrictive, because in other games where you can marry different people, there's more marriage options or romance options in general, even if you don't have the sexy time cutscenes, which I feel like every time I got into a discussion about the characters of Cyberpunk, people only named the name of the characters, not their motivations or the character's personality traits, what their likes or dislikes or hobbies are, anything like that. Look, I love Tali, Miranda, and Liara in Mass Effect, and that ass hot, but that's not the only thing I know or love about those characters. Oh, crap. Why are they attacking me? What the frick? Oh, they're vampires. Let's let the spiders and them fight. Oh, and Dirkethus. No, Dirkethus, fight them. Why are they using a naked guy? Frick you. I'm playing Gorus the Deathclaw. That's my character, by the way. Oh no, don't turn me into a vampire, please. Frick you. Where's the other guy? There he is. Frick you, spider. Why aren't there more wandering thugs around and stuff? Like, because you're only gonna... Either you don't care about Judy because she's a generic one-tone note character, or, you just want sexy time with Judy. So you're just gonna choose one or the other. And you have to exploit stuff like give a male character a woman voice in order to even be able to make love with her. But that ass shouldn't be the only reason you like someone. What are you, the prince from the Swan Princess movie? You remember? Does anybody even remember that movie? Why do I have to compare that to this? So freaking obscure. But the fact that I'm doing it just talks about the problems of people in certain situations like this. Also, can I ruin Cyberpunk even further? I think there are people who love this movie, but it's just an edgy version of Robots, the animated movie. I think even that movie, even though it's a different type of media, does not only a better, more like memorable overall message, but where the message kind of just blends together with everything else in freaking Cyberpunk. Because it's trying to do so many things at once, it's just like gets all mixed and jumbled up. There's so much exposition. Freaking Christopher Nolan movies have more memorable dialogue and characters through its many hours of exposition than the frickin' they like memorable lines. That's the reason I made the question thing. The reason I said average fans is I know that somebody who is diehard a fan of a game is gonna know just about everything about that game. But that can be said for just about every game. I don't think Cyberpunk does anything new, and for all the things people give other games for crap on being outdated, Cyberpunk has some pretty outdated crap too. Like, what the frick's with the having to be the passenger while a frickin' NPC drives you around and spouts exposition or sob stories or whatever? It's just like, what the frick? Or some connection to Johnny Silverhand. Johnny Silverhand and V, while they have their moments, they frickin' come off as dickheads. When you get to play the perspective of Ciri in The Witcher 3, and in The Witcher 3 you have, like, excluding animals, you have, like, bandits and other people wandering around, monsters of all different types and stuff, either flying or wandering the world, and whether it's certain locations or not. It feels more lively there. And that even gives you a horse to travel too. It feels more alive. They actually have that stuff, as well as when you walk up to a store owner, you have more dialogue options, or you can just play Gwent with them or something. The world doesn't feel so interactable because that story feels so separate from the rest of it in the way it executes itself. It just kind of sucks. I could never get into the frickin' game because of stuff like that. Sure, I'll join your racist group. No, I'm just kidding. I'd rather join the Imperials. But Gorz the Deathclaw speaks for himself with fists of steel. And you have to realize that role-playing isn't just in the dialogue, it is also in how you play your character, what you choose to do with your character, and so on. While the world of Cyberpunk is big and you can eventually be able to explore it, it just doesn't have the kind of ooh-ah that other games have, where you're like, oh, what's that over there, and stuff. And because of how empty it feels, eventually when you do find stuff, it just eventually will falter, and you just won't care over time. Once again, I think because of people's attention spans, and that not everybody thinks like a reviewer does or whatever, or as in-depth as someone like Radical Soda or whatever, that can talk lengths, that not everybody's gonna obviously see this kind of stuff, but it's there. It exists. I mean, if we were to go by Steam being the end-all, be-all of decision-making on why a game is good or bad, then where the frick is the rest of the frickin' player base? That game originally on launch had over 800,000 people. Only 200 or so thousand of that people category came back to play it, and it's faltering now, and you know it's not going to get mods for console or later DLC and such, or a sequel for a long time. So it's going to be the talk of the town, only cool for a couple weeks, where it sucked for years because the game was garbage for like 3 years practically. And then people will probably only mention it occasionally from time to time. That's about it. You're gonna do this. So that's it. We're gonna fight. Don't call me a milk drinker, dickhead. Ow. I can... Jeez. Get over here. Even if, like, I'm playing as a fist fighting character or whatever, so... But there are different ways you can play. You got magic, shouts, stabs, different types of melee weapons. Why aren't you helping out, Dirkethis? This guy's beating me up. He's being a dickhead. Oh, wait a minute. I gotta go to powers. Oh, it is. Hold on. Am I still... Yeah, I'm still recording. I just wanted to make sure. But yeah, I just don't feel like, because of how empty the world is, it doesn't feel as complimentary to the gameplay, as well as the way the enemies are spread out and stuff. And the fact that the only interactable things are civilians and police, and you have to provoke them. And even then, the civilians aren't going to attack, but the police will. But the police aren't still all that bright. I mean, it's a video game, what do you expect? But still, like, it kind of needs random encounters, or robots, drones flying around, walking around, more thugs, and frickin' gang members, maybe even hunting you down. It needs to feel like the world actually is reacting to you in other ways than just point your gun at person and they run away and cower in fear. It needs more than just that. If that's your only reaction or interaction you're getting from the world, outside of the story, which the story feels so scripted and separate from the rest of the world, it just doesn't matter. It doesn't complement it. Your gunplay and gameplay is only as good as what you're using it towards, or what is meant to complement it in the first place. And I do not feel like Cyberpunk has a whole lot of that. There's just so much replay value you can get out of a game like Cyberpunk before it loses that steam before other games do. You know that games, sadly, like Starfield, are going to get people coming back to it again in the future once it gets mods on console and such. Get away from me. Is he attacking? Oh, Dirkethis is finally attacking. Did the orc just heal? Are you serious? Yeah, that's what you get, Mira. Get owned. Anyways. I just don't feel like the other element... Oh, he's dual-wielding. What the hell? I've never seen Dirkethis dual-wield. That's crazy. That's cool. I never see enough to complement it. I wish the world had more life to it. Even though I got the whole animal lore thing wrong, I still feel like if you exclude that, even in something like The Witcher 3 and such, you still have other life in those games going on than just civilians cowering or the police system. Like, there needs to be more. It just doesn't feel like enough. And the endings and options in the main game that they do give you is just not enough to give replay value or factor in replay value anyways. And people try to excuse... We've become the very evil we sought to destroy. We try to excuse games by saying, oh, it'll be fixed and patched later, you know, frickin' Sea of Thieves, you know, frickin' No Man's Sky. No Man's Sky is a different situation, but still, like... it's freaking weird that people are all of a sudden almost sounding as corporate as the corporate overlords themselves at times, and it's just weird. Like, what is wrong with people sometimes? I don't understand people. It's just weird. And I feel like there's a lot of manipulation and such being used from what Cyberpunk is doing, from whether it's some of the fans or something else, or taking advantage of the whole PlayStation hate situation, even though the PlayStation fans should rightly so hate the Cyberpunk fans, honestly, because goddamn, they got the worst version back in the day of Cyberpunk, so the irony of that, they still have that warning on the PS4 versions, and realize that not everybody's going to be able to afford a more expensive or better PC and such, as well as newer consoles, or care about the next generation, so they're probably not gonna ever experience the update 2.0, and even then it's still got a lot of the same obviously programmed in flaws that it usually does. Like L321 has brought out, or like beat 'em ups and such. It's just so stupid. None of the characters are contrived, forgettable, bland. They all kind of blend together. The name Cyberpunk is they're more focused on the punk side of that, rather than, and even don't even know what punk means, apparently, too. Like, frickin' Johnny Silverhand kind of looks like a design for the main character, a rejected design for the main character of Far Cry 3 Blood Dragon, and he kind of feels like put in at the last minute. The charm of Keanu Reeves isn't gonna be enough. You have a lot of games that have wonderful acting. You can have a game that has fantastic acting, but fricks up everything else. Take Last of Us Part 2, for example. There's a lot of games I could use as examples. You have dialogue, but most of it is still going to go the same directions with very few variations and stuff. It's got the same problems as Mass Effect Andromeda. It's got the same problems as Outer Worlds. It's just ridiculous. The world is too empty. The gameplay is great, but the enemies don't complement it. Like, the enemies don't even feel like they have much variety, or that they're designed in specific ways that complement things, like how Halo has different enemy types that complement its gameplay, or Gears of War and stuff. You have all these different enemy types, and they all have a different job to do. Oh, what the hell? What the hell? Just randomly getting attacked by this drug dealer. Is it because I attacked the other drug dealer guy in the previous video? Frick you. I'm gonna win this thing, you bitch. You little bitch, baby. But yeah, it's just freaking ridiculous, the stuff that went around Cyberpunk. I feel like people should have been cautiously optimistic, and I feel like it got overhyped again. Yeah! WWE, bitch! Take that! I'm gonna take all your drugs. Let me have that. Why do you have silver boots on you? What the hell? See you later, punk. I'm taking your shoes. But the weak point, the kryptonite of Cyberpunk is its interactivity. It has very lacking interactivity with the world and characters. Like, and you can do once again, you can do Judy, Panam, all their quests through every playthrough, and it mostly plays out the same, except for who you romance. Though you have to exploit some certain things just to have a guy romance a girl that is only lesbian. So, yeah, that kind of sucks, that they don't give you much variation. Yeah, and the game just doesn't do enough crazy that I haven't already seen before either, and yet people treat it as if it's crazier than it actually is on the surface. And it's just like, what the hell is wrong with people? What the hell do you see in this? And I'm not doubting that the DLC isn't good or anything. I'm sure it's freaking amazing. I don't care personally, because Cyberpunk's let me down too much. And the fans kept hyping the game up as well as saying, oh, it's better now after every single goddamn patch it got. Be patient! I think Cyberpunk fans need patience. If they had patience, then people like me wouldn't be complaining about the goddamn game like we are on the frickin' internet. But because you lack that, frick off. But anyways, not every Cyberpunk fan or every fan of us of something is bad. But sadly, there are those few people who categorize everybody within a fan base as all being awful, kind of like what Angry Joe did with Night's Watch fan base, even though some of the fan base of Night's Watch admitted they are also a fan base to Angry Joe. So the irony of that situation, and I feel like it's the same thing with Cyberpunk fans saying Bethesda fans are garbage, and a certain YouTuber that I've only mentioned once on my channel has done that same thing where they categorize, and of course they're clickbait titles. I don't doubt that I have clickbait titles, but am I not talking about the stuff I want to in the title? I certainly want to make sure that I am. Otherwise, it's a frickin' lie. But, like, I feel like their clickbait titles are more meant to be malicious or even lies at times, or to attack everybody within that fan base or whatever, or to be aggressive or bullying in a whole different sense. You know how somebody will go in the comments and bully you through a comment? And they'll say rude things or name calling or something? Well, take for example, you do that, except it's only within your videos and video titles. You don't take it any further than that. That's kind of how some people sadly felt around the time that Cyberpunk and such was launching. And it frickin' sucks. Let me see if I can get my notes. I'm just kind of wandering around while I talk about this stuff. Why are you dual-wielding? You don't usually dual-wield, bruh. That's weird. And I keep finding new things about this game. It's not to say that you don't find new things about something like Cyberpunk, but because of how empty its world is and stuff, I don't know how people don't realize the kind of stuff other than, you know, attention span. They don't think on the same level as like Radical Soda or a game reviewer or whatever. I'm not even a game reviewer, and I think as in depth as I have. So let me see. So I have a lot written down. A lot. So let's see if I can get through this. So also, Arasaka is terrible. They don't show their oppression towards people. There's only so few cutscenes where they actually do evil deeds and such. They just don't show their presence all that much, and nobody shows that they're in fear of them or anything, or intimidated by their deeds. They're not even clear on what they're a company of. Probably gonna have just some random encounter walk up to me. Are you constantly taking your weapons out and putting them away? Anyways, I'm just gonna try and go through this. Arasaka are terrible villains that only come after you when scripted. Most stuff is scripted outside of the scripted parts. That's like 80% of the main game, unless wandering the world outside of it, but there are problems with that stuff. We'll talk about after the most characters spout exposition, even had ironic long-ass texts from them from time to time. You can tell Johnny Silverhand and Keanu Reeves was last-minute stuff, and that they decided to focus story on why couldn't he be a real person in the game that interacts with you? Why did the villainous company, instead of killing him right away, make a copy of him and a chip that needs to be kept cold that you insert into your hot-ass chip slot heads? Main two characters not only skip over your character becoming a merc and choosing a vehicle and stuff, but are also unlikable jackasses most of the time. While it's explained in lore, there's no animal life. It is not always made clear enough, as most times you talk to people, it's long-ass amounts of dialogue that blends together and is used so much. Too much. Either characters share a connection to Johnny Silverhand or have a sob story to tell you of their own, but because you can't really interact with these characters outside these scripted missions, you can't always just go to their house or even normal store owners and stuff and have different unique dialogue decisions and discussions or whatever, or ask them other questions and such to the same amount of other games, RPG games. The game is like, it wants to be a Bethesda game, but at the same time doesn't. It wants to also be like a Naughty Dog game because it's focusing so heavily on the story aspects and that dialogue and stuff. Coming back to the whole wildlife thing, I wish the game also had, I hate the boring passenger seat exposition driving segments. Why couldn't you drive the character that's spouting boring exposition? Why aren't there more drones or robots or gang members, random encounters, or people that are hunting you down for bounties and stuff? Or with the shooting out of your car mechanic, why can't there be like random drive-bys of people gang members in cars shooting at people? Kind of take Gran Torino movie, for example. Like, why isn't there situations like that, you see, in the main game? Alright, you're paying most of your playtime, most of your money towards the campaign as well, because that's the $40 of the $70 deal where you know the DLC is only 30 of that. The DLC can do that is what it does separate by 3 years on the game spent 8 to 9 years cooking in development just to be ass anyway when people forgive all of a sudden after the manipulation, after them blaming the fans for the OG state of the game that other YouTube channels like Yangi and Sadly Angry Joe covered, just to forget about these. They just want your money, these assholes. A step that we're just bringing the gaming industry a step closer by apologizing and promoting this kind of stuff and saying, oh, they can patch it later. Later mentality is just freaking ridiculous. I would, once again, I said I would use L321 and the beginning and ending of Radical Soda's long-ass version of the Sonic Colors Ultimate Review to apply to this game and CD Projekt Red. People can still find stuff enjoyable in games. Let's see. Decision-making has no real bearing on the world. It's fake scripted drama, just like your character dying slowly within a certain time limit. That is also fake because you can live as long as you want in the game. I brought up Salt Factory with Mass Effect Andromeda, as well as with Outer Worlds and Mass Effect Andromeda's dialogue option problem in situations. Most playthroughs of the main game have shown this what is this? Nothing in between. I feel like people will lie for the game that ironically lied and manipulated anybody. Cyberpunk is about a sci-fi dystopian world. It's a genre all high-tech and low living, an edgy robot. It's like an edgy version of the Robots animated movie with themes of major oppression through government and companies and regimes. Cyberpunk, the game, is obsessed with the punk part of that, but they don't actually know what punk means. It's all about non-conformity. Summary, it's a ethos, ETHOS, not a fashion choice. Punk is more anti-establishment and non-conformity. It's weird that almost everyone is dressed like a depressed emo hooker or stripper in the game, with oversaturated colors and big hairdos. It just kind of becomes the norm when everybody's like that, or the status quo. It was like a bunch of suits or COs came together and said, now, okay, what's punk look like? The game is even a lie in name. It makes sense that vehicles exist, otherwise people would have the same complaints, but somehow worse about Cyberpunk as they did with Starfield. How ironic. And how ironic. Why I posed those questions in a previous video to Cyberpunk players, average ones, because we know diehard fans would know everything about a game because they spend their life studying the damn thing, like any other fan of something. I don't feel this game is respectful to the OG tabletop stuff and didn't understand it even. If they were trying to do their own thing, it's still a mess in ways that don't or never had to include the glitches in the first place. Punk isn't supposed to mean punk. Cyberpunk is taking tech to the point that it looks crappy, but they get the job done, instead of Johnny looking like some Far Cry 3 Blood Dragon main character rejected design that CD Projekt Red saw and said, hey, can we have that? It's supposed to look raw DIY thing. It's not refined, not literally punk, like looking ugly for the sake of ugly or adding stupid symmetrical lights to a car, backup lights or tail lights or whatever. Its city has the neon cyberpunk look, but none of the feels. Should have focused on that stuff instead, honestly. And it should have reflected more of what cyberpunk means. I feel like they didn't study enough, or they had their own interpretation that was wrong in the first place. You also can do everyone's story all the way through on every playthrough with very little in change of variation and experience. Mostly the same stuff with 3 beginnings that don't have any bearing on the story and occasionally pop up as options that serve more like asking an NPC a question before coming back to the same dialogue options, which blue highlighted ones make no difference, but yellow basically just says, will you please click this so I can continue the story dialogue. Beat 'em ups brought up how when you're going to meet with the daughter of the main company, he remembered, oh, but I'm street kid. I'd want to meet up somewhere else instead of a corporate, obviously dangerous area and trap to me. But as well as I'll probably obviously be betrayed, but as soon as he asks that or tries to select the option, he gets shut down right there and then from that, and the story progresses as so a lot of this happens. So a lot of that kind of stuff happens in the dialogue. And I was told the intro was awful, but rest of the game was great. But if the beginning isn't that good, then I guess all of it is bad. Insert new features like police system to skill tree to gameplay, and your gameplay has to be complemented by the other elements of the game. Role-playing isn't just in dialogue, it's in the gameplay and the way you play, and if you give a D&D like background to your character and play style, does the world, NPCs and enemies in it complement the gameplay and such, or gunplay? A lot of what people have said, as well as even me has said, is subjective for the most part, but it tried to come across cocky and as if they're winners and they're on what they say, and as if they say they're objective and you're not. It's really selfish. There are better ways to reword or say things or criticize things without doing these things in a dickish way. And because that no random encounters or more than NPC civilians don't wander or drive the streets of Night City, or it still becomes weirdly empty from time to time. Well, the NPCs do drive around, but they don't. There's not very little variation once again in their interactions. Beat 'em ups in L321 has shown that there's still a lot of the obvious programming of cars disappearing and then respawning in places, as well as NPCs, or just NPCs on sidewalks or driving the roads just completely make it empty anyways in places. I think it would be it would have the same problem as the Gotham Knights game when you're playing co-op, where you'll notice a lot of NPCs disappearing from one player that's behind the other player. because it's trying to load in the other area for the other player. You'd probably see that stuff if they decided to go with co-op. I probably would have liked it if they did co-op. But once again, just like Fallout 76, just because you do something like that and somebody has fun with the game doesn't necessarily mean that it's good. You can still have fun with just about anything, even crap. Cyberpunk being called a huge win feels like the equivalent of someone thinking they just did a cool thing, like beating up someone that was attacking or giving some innocent people trouble. Like, say you see somebody harassing people on the street and you tell them, shove off, you shouldn't be doing this kind of stuff, I'm going to call the police or whatever. But it's the equivalent of somebody, in real life, you're actually naked in front of a 7-Eleven drunk, beating up another half-naked drunk guy while being recorded on YouTube or Instagram or something. Nobody wins in that situation. That's how the whole Cyberpunk winning thing feels. Nobody won. We all lose. Alright, let's see. Most of this, we never get to see the Great War or repercussions of that in the game. Most of it is up in the you have to look it up in the wiki, and kind of shares the same problems that Destiny had with its lore, what that Angry Joe talked about, where its lore gets mixed in with that 80% of dialogue. Arasaka, the main character, main motive of becoming a legend is stupid, doesn't make sense, or just isn't a powerful enough motive, and the villain, other than killing Jackie, which... other than the funeral celebration for him, kind of gets forgotten about, mixed in with the 80% dialogue, as well as it's you guys' fault in the first place, so it's not really a reason for Arasaka. I think the anime kind of showed more about, what's his freaking name? The characters aren't memorable. I forget most of their names anyways. I find it hard that people remember the names. Probably because they're just simple names like Judy and Johnny. Those aren't hard names to forget. You never get to see the evil. Also, the company... Oh, where is it? There's a parade celebration that they do later, and nobody shows that they're afraid of the company. And it's not clear what their company even of, like what their company of what. Seem very focused. Doesn't feel very focused. Kind of like how Militech is military based. We are just told to believe that they're evil. You don't see that oppression reflected in the game. And Manly Reviews used a good example with the Ganondorf. I think there's a good example of, like, say, Skyrim or Fallout 4. I don't think Fallout 4 is one of their better games, but you got to see Alduin's tyranny through a city, and then you see Alduin reviving some dragons, and then throughout you assume, oh wait, the dragons random encounters and randomly attacking villages and cities and stuff whenever I'm around or something, is reflective of the villain, because you already got the gist that the villain's doing that. So you know that of the villain's presence through that. It's kind of like Sauron. You know of his presence through his armies and the tyranny they reign across the world of Middle-earth. As well as the Institute, even though they're terribly written, you still feel their tyranny. Same with the dudes the freaking main villain of Manamarco or whatever, and the Daedric Prince in that game that's trying to break through into our world. You feel their presence in Oblivion because they're opening portals around Tamriel and stuff and wreaking havoc, even destroyed an entire city or whatever through those actions and such, and you have to stop them. So you feel their tyranny and stuff, and see their minions and such. You don't really see much of that of Arasaka in that game. Let me move my characters so that they're actually... Whoops, I didn't mean punch. Am I seeing something in front of me? I don't have glasses on because I'm trying to read this. So enemies are there's not much oppression reflected in what the character, the main villain does. They don't show that they're oppressing people. Enemies and mini-bosses or whatever are spaced out so far and in between, and you have to walk up to most of them to trigger them, and how fun will being chased by the police be until it loses that and you go do something else. Because of these things, and Destiny has similar problems, but at least handles it better, Cyberpunk has great gunplay, and its perk abilities and system and skill tree and stuff are great, but I don't care since these previous or repetitive elements don't complement it or give it much to do outside of that. Stealth seeing through walls at enemies, and its god-awful mini-games and hacking, other than the Roach one on the arcade machine, but your hotel rooms are more of an aesthetic than anything else. Stealth is trivialized where most games give you or are designed with a third-person camera in mind. Looking around corners helps with the third-person camera angle is a option, but not only does looking through walls feel like it's the equivalent of turret sections or QuickTime events, but both AC and the Batman Arkham games have their looking through walls things. And no, I'm not talking about the X-ray system that Superman has. Splinter Cell had design obstacles in mind for being able to see through walls with certain visions. They would like put static if you started moving around too much, or there would be an enemy in the area that would mess with your equipment or something. They would give some sort of obstacle to that stuff. One of the game's biggest weaknesses is interactivity. Because it lacks this specifically, and it really needs it to complement the story, both ironically Bethesda and BioWare have learned from this. It helps to make the stories and characters and world more impactful, but because it's mostly a in and out conversation, then not much else but maybe a phone call or text, which I want to be transported to a cool world, not acknowledging the one I'm in. Also, Up Is Not Jump said in his Skyrim is a Nightmare video the difference between the look of The Witcher's world and Skyrim, as one is trying to replicate real life in that time period, while the other is trying to create a fantastical setting. I feel the same can be applied here with Cyberpunk. Hell, Starfield at times feels like places like New Atlantis or whatever would be more fantastical, and yet the manipulation, buy-hating, or abusing Steam's 2-hour limit of returns from both fans, not all of course, from Sony ponies to Cyberpunk fans, seeing this as an opportunity to not only attack but promote and push one-sided comparison videos on people, not showing other things to compare, and shouldn't be what decides if a game is good or not, as that is simplistic, and sadly some will see that. I mean, Zelda did details better than the Horizon Zero Dawn and Forgotten West games. Did that necessarily mean they were bad? No. So stop it. Get some help. Yes, I referenced some memes. Reggie Fuzume, thank you. And what's wrong with you? Also, it's Alex has said and is based in saying Steam is not the end-all and be-all for games. I'm not lying when I say there was a guy that made a video on how Cyberpunk was better, and even his top 5th game on Steam. Like, what do you realize how many games exist on Steam? And he only did the message part of that, later saying different things at the end of his video, originally making different statements. Like, that feels that the video is conflicting with its own, not only the title that it's throwing at you, but with its own things that it's trying to say. And it gets all mixed up and not very consistent. No, Fallout New Vegas is better than Cyberpunk, and that's the game he compared. There's no doubt, and there's several reasons why. Also, there's plenty of bad games that have fantastic DLC. That still doesn't mean squat, but apparently it all of a sudden does. I imposed questions that characters, if you can name personality traits and motivations, something they like to do, or stuff they hate, or like, and so on and so forth, to be more than 4 or 5 in each category, as I named in the video things and lines of dialogue that they say even from Mass Effect and even Skyrim. I used as examples. And you don't even need to be a fanboy of a Bethesda or BioWare game to know that those problems still are there, outside of needing to be a fanboy of anything. And I can still be both criticizing of those things too, and see their flaws, while also seeing the opposite game's flaws. After everything I said today, I would like to pose the question, despite whether or not you agree with me, when you review a game as they come in the box or not unpatched, even after still having problems that once again L321 and Beat 'em Up said, I will link them. I'll try to link them to know, do you think it's acceptable for companies like CD Projekt Red to be releasing games in the state it was and with previously mentioned problems? Good on ya if you enjoy or found something worth your money in a game and your fun factor. But I don't feel that always applies, and just because you love it doesn't mean others will. I mean, if we are to say Steam, once again, is the say-all and all of the conversation, then where is the other 600,000 people who played this back in the day for a while? We only had 200,000 or less now, because it's going down, of players of that game that had more than 800,000 in the first place on release. Where did they all go? That's not including console players either, and who's playing on console and how many of this game. It's also weird that Cyberpunk fans gang up on a game other than genuine problems it had on PC. Starfield, when PlayStation fans got back in the day the worst version of the game, and it still is not getting 2.0 on PS4. The message of it feels so ironic. Of its state in PS4, it still has that message of its state in PS4 stores. And not everyone cares nor can afford a great PC or the new gen consoles. And once again, don't care. Am I almost done with all this? God, I wrote a lot. At least other games on day one were more playable and polished. Hell, frickin' Radical Soda said, when's the last time you had a game like a PS2 game crash on you? For all the bugginess and stuff people gave Sonic Heroes back in the day crap for that he talks about, the majority of games nowadays are either unfinished or absolute garbage on launch, and it sucks. And I can say that, like, honestly, the same argument I made for like the older Resident Evil and Silent Hill games, because so many games are trying to be all alike to one another. Like, if you put footage of the Resident Evil 4 remake next to Last of Us Part 1 and next to Uncharted 4, and you put those next to each other, I couldn't really tell the difference other than the characters and such, because they're all trying to reflect that whole realism look of just better graphics. Better graphics does not equal better games. Also, graphics are the last thing you should be thinking about when it comes to a game, and you still need your gameplay to be complemented by stuff even then. And they're all doing the same way of how you control a third-person shooter nowadays. There's no variation or way to tell the difference between games as much anymore, other than maybe their art style and such. They're all playing very similar to one another nowadays. It sucks because games like freaking the original Resident Evils and Silent Hills and the charm of Bethesda games, and that people forget that Bethesda made games like Morrowind and that was held to the same high standards as Fallout New Vegas. Uh, these games, actually, I would make the same argument about Bethesda games, that they feel one of a kind, that there's no other game company that replicates what they do or is able to do. Other than maybe indie companies trying to replicate the old gameplay style of older Resident Evils and stuff. I feel like those games are one of a kind, they're unique. We don't get games like that anymore, and I kind of wish we did. And I think the same argument can be made here. Alright, let's see what else I wrote. So, at least other games on day one were more playable and polished. Their releases most of the time, even Bethesda games, are compared to that, and Cyberpunk does nothing we haven't seen before. Also, for the complaints of Bethesda games, while pathetic. And L321 mentioned that Cyberpunk shouldn't be on the same level of comparison to that of Starfield even. But like I said, when I get tired or see the many problems that persist in that, what someone like Actman would call modern gaming, I see games like Bethesda games or the old RE or Silent Hill games, okay, I'm saying the same thing I just mentioned, as unique, one-of-a-kind games that others are having a trouble imitating or unable to imitate. Other than indie companies maybe trying to imitate that stuff, never get that charm or see as much of those types of games anymore. While I agree that reusing the same assets or loading screens and stuff, even though you can fix that with an SSD card or so on, even though the loading screens aren't that bad, I think it's upgraded by the chip that I just mentioned. Okay, I'm just repeating myself because I'm not seeing what I'm saying ahead of myself. I ever said that pretty much elements or makes them like Zelda game length. It's also pretty a petty complaint, but so what I use all and also or but also or whatever a lot. Game company or companies don't do that stuff. You could say the same eventually of CD Projekt Red years down the line, where I said they will eventually be laughed at for the same problems that Bethesda is laughed at, where reusing assets and so on. Do you think at the time, or for the future reference potentially, that CD Projekt Red gives a crap about quality control? No, and thinking they were merchandising and giving the green light to an anime and comics before the 2.0 update, or most of the updates, honestly, they pulled, that they deserve to be praised on the same level of pulling a No Man's Sky. Not for the love, they don't have the love for the fans truly. Maybe some of the harder dedicated CD Projekt Red workers, but more for the love of the money. It is not fair, and yes, lots have worked hard on this. It's not fair to them, but still, those people who thought of the money there are still those people there that think of the money, as well as they were unprofessional and started saying fans and consumers were to blame for the original game state. The final boss of Cyberpunk has a halo effect, that being Atom Smasher. Okay, that's his name. But because of the previous things I mentioned, and because in order to know, or at least remember who Atom even is, you gotta watch a separate anime that tells you, or something else separated that reminds you, and if it's in the game, then it's through all the ridiculous amounts of exposition and 80% dialogue. Watch a separate anime that tells you, that reminds me of what Halo is trying to say, where it's like, to understand what's going on in the game lore, you have to read the books or watch the shows. The latest show is garbage. I don't think it's connected though, but the other shows I'm talking about. read the book, watch our show, give us more money, basically, through your views, you dumbass fools. Yeah, you're the fool. We all lose. No one but CD Projekt Red wins. Is that who you want to win? After everything that's said? And it's an evil win, too. I mean, they were blaming us not even a month before the release of the DLC, that we, the consumers, are the reason the game was in a bad state originally, and even were boasting about their game before it got all these updates. This really, people... What the hell? What did I write there? Do you think they deserve the credit for all that and the money for the stuff they did? Really, a game that deserves this praise? I personally do not think... Is this a game that deserves all that praise? I personally do not think so from previously mentioned things. But that won't stop you neither. Is it the point, once again, I think, to add that people have short attention spans or whatever, or they don't have the same thinking as, say, what Radical Soda does when he compiles a giant video and has all the stuff he has to talk about, or what I'm doing even, or a game reviewer. So not everybody's going to think that way. We have to stop apologizing for the company's problems, as it only gives us more crap like we got with Cyberpunk on its when it originally launched. But let's see. Also, at least Bethesda didn't stoop to those levels until Fallout 76. Then they did, though there was horse armor back in Oblivion. But I think Starfield definitely has plenty of passion behind it. And I'm going to do a late review with the perspective of both me and my friend Dave, as well as something another friend wanted to add, but won't be able to be in the video. Thanks again if you enjoyed this video and any other videos I've done. Don't forget to... Well, what I'm going to say at the end of this video, like, share, and subscribe, and leave your comments below. Tell me what you think. Now for the real goodbye. No. I actually wrote even more than I thought I was going to say. Also, Cyberpunk is an example of complacency that consumers have because they say they can patch it later. Don't worry, guys. Well, I'm not blind evil dumbass. No, so I don't swing that way. So I'm mostly trying to quote what Radical Soda said because I wanted to use his example and I loved it. And sadly, the very evil we originally sought to destroy is the very evil we now just accept. I review what I bought even now, and funny enough, only had so few glitches myself. Yeah, I barely had glitches. I think the only glitches was falling cars, maybe some clipping of characters, and that gun sticking through Jackie's head. While in the middle of playing it, when I did my ironic title, Let's Hate to Play series of Evil Within, those nitpicks and legit problems are piling up, much like reviewing any other older game that doesn't have the benefit of being patched. So when was the last time a PS2 game crashed on you? Somehow most of the games of older consoles have half the bar for quality control than half the games we get these past couple of years. Because of games like this, you have changed the way we review games, or should review games. I am sure that going through the entirety of the game and what it has to offer as I play, but because that would make this even longer, and I got the important parts out of the way, but it wouldn't be no different from, say, someone like Radical Soda's review of Sonic Colors Ultimate. So what's the point then? And yes, I can see the opposite point of views, which yes, also exist, but this is my video, so eat my ass, because you're already eating a gross ass playing that not so great of a game as some make it out to be. You can enjoy whatever you want. Once again, even after all I said, you can still absolutely love Cyberpunk. I want to keep that in mind. That doesn't necessarily mean that is good, though, and stop boasting and waving your cock around as if you're, I'm a winner, I know better than you, me, I got the ego. Got a big ego on me. You know, that kind of crap. I hate comments like that, and they're absolutely blind and stupid. And it sometimes feels like people make up stuff. Like when I heard that guy say the world reacts, unless he's talking about, once again, what I brought up with the civilians, they only can react one way, though, really. There aren't those multiple other options of reactions and stuff that I just previously mentioned in this video. And it feels like, and then that person had to add stupid phrases and stuff like, oh, before you criticize a game, lemao, and like, you should have thought more in detail. What a waste of a video. It's like, what a waste of a comment. It feels like you're making up bullshit. You can go and watch somebody's playthrough, and I'm sure a lot of the stuff I just mentioned are in their playthroughs. Most people's playthroughs. I don't know what else to say. I just think Cyberpunk is a really bad open-world game. It kind of needs those elements to be better. And I want to use this last example. I can see a fantastic sequel coming out of Cyberpunk. If they focused on what Cyberpunk meant, if they added those elements that make the world feel more alive and interesting. They don't need animals. They can have other things. Robots, drones, thugs, whatever. Yes, I know I need a level up game. But yeah, because it's lacking in so many of those areas, it's just, yeah, it's not great. And you can have a great DLC to a game and still have the main game be garbage. I take Evil Within and The Surge, for example. I freaking hate those games. Even ESO. Frick that game. That game does not have the charm of typical Bethesda games. I am glad they finally have companions that at least adds a little something. But god freaking damn it. So, I had so many, I hate the main game of those, but I love the DLC. I think the DLCs as well as the sequels are freaking awesome and benefit what we got, but were sadly underrated and people skipped over them. And there were some brilliant things. That doesn't mean that the main game is good and you're still paying a bigger price for the main game than you are the DLC. I also always felt that even though they had like 200 or so outfit pieces and stuff in Cyberpunk, that they felt fairly generic or had that Division, Tom Clancy's Division problem where they just were generic clothing and stuff and it looked ugly as hell. Like, I didn't feel like the variety, because of how ugly or just boring the clothing and options and such were, I just didn't really feel like the variety was there, even in the enemy types and such. Like, it was just very lackluster. Variety is kind of a weakness to Cyberpunk as well. Once again, it has all the feels as... none of the feels of a Cyberpunk world, but the look of one. I don't know. The game pisses me off. So many people have soured my taste for it. I don't think my opinion's changing anytime soon, sadly. I am going to be playing the game again because I have to. I'm playing Morrowind currently, if you want to know. I'm playing it more legit. I'm going through its story. I'm going to be going through its guilds and stuff. I gotta make sure that I don't close off certain quests to me because that can happen. I don't think something like that can really happen in Cyberpunk, and if it does, it's very bare minimum compared to other games. But yeah, even Skyrim still has a reactive world too. Like, this world has the Thieves Guild can come after you, or try to rob you or whatever. You have different dialogue options depending on if you're in the Thieves Guild or not. The Dark Brotherhood can hunt you down at a certain point, or depending on who you choose in the war, either the Thalmor or one of the factions will be angry with you and attack you, as well as like who you choose as a faction in Fallout 76, because certain factions will be friendly or stationed in certain locations of the world, open world, wandering around and stuff. Even as random encounters and such, or side quests and such. And that will be interaction. You don't have really any of that in Cyberpunk, and when you do, it's so far and few between. I think they made a wise choice putting vehicles in Cyberpunk, because otherwise, if they didn't have vehicles, that game, you would really notice it even faster, that game is not very good with its world. Yeah, I don't know what else to say. I feel like I said everything here. I don't know if my videos that are uploading currently and going to be on the channel are as good put into detail as this video. Hopefully you get the gist of what I'm trying to say, and I don't even know if I titled the third one right. I didn't know how to title my videos, honestly, so the titles just came out long as hell. I didn't know what else to do there. So, whatever. It gets my point across on what I wanted to say, though. So, yeah, it's like, I don't know. I don't think a lot of the things in the game complement it enough. And even though the game's trying to be different, I feel like it kind of needs those other elements, and it honestly doesn't do anything different or say anything different that I haven't seen in other games. So, yeah. I don't know what else to say. I think I've said everything I had to say here, and I kind of repeated myself after looking through my notes and stuff. Yeah, I'll probably do another video with my friend Dave, because he apparently had some stuff to add about the map, and, how you try to explore the world and stuff, because he had major problems with the world. He always told me that he got really bored of Cyberpunk, even driving around, and he would feel more like, oh, I want to play a better game right now, like Deus Ex, Mankind Divided, or Human Revolution or something, or just another game in general. I'm surprised that Casey, I made a comment to Casey. I told my friend Casey, hey, I see you're playing Starfield. I hope you enjoy it. And he said to me, and I'm not lying, I can even try and take a picture of the frickin', or whatever I can do. I don't know, record it. I don't think it matters. But all he said to me, and I didn't even realize this, he says is his favorite game this year. And I'm like, wow, that's crazy. Baldur's Gate 3 is the thing. Have you gotten to play that? I don't think he has, because it hasn't come out for Xbox. He mostly plays Xbox stuff. But yeah, as well as PC. But yeah, like, I think I said everything I had to say. I think I tore Cyberpunk a new asshole after all of this. I think I tore those cringy-ass, frickin' biased asshole game YouTube channels that are a bunch of dickheads and use their content to bully people. I tore them a new asshole as well, without actually needing to mention their names, with the only ones I mention the names of being YouTubers I actually think give genuine feedback or interesting points of view and stuff to the conversation I'm trying to create within this very video. So, we'll see. I hope you enjoyed nonetheless. I hope you found something interesting, even if you disagree with the view or whatever, or have your own points of view or things to add. That's always greatly appreciated. Realize, don't go about it in a cocky way or a rude, egotistical way. Don't be an asshole in your comments. There are many ways you can word something without sounding like a generic school bully or a dickhead. I know I'm using names as well, like dickhead and stuff, but seriously, don't. It's freaking ridiculous. It's not needed. It is not deserved. It is over the top. It is stupid, unnecessary, pointless schlock and dumbass stuff. If you want to criticize something or talk about something, there are many ways to word it and to criticize it without adding that kind of stuff to it. And that is the most based answer I can give you in this entire video, unless other things came across as based. And I realize that there's that subjectivity opposed to objectivity is still a thing. That there's subjective points of view and objective points of view of stuff. Not everything is going to be objective, though, and not everything is going to be subjective. Most of the stuff I've seen has been subjective. Most of the time, by the way, when you comment to me, the guy that I removed the comment of was a dickhead and had quite the ego on him, but originally my friend said don't pay any attention to him. I thought the comment was actually harmful, though, and I felt the guy was being kind of a rude asshole. But I made sure the message that everybody knew come to it even in the description that I did that. And I should probably change the description of my channel alone so that people know that too from there, and it'll always be under each video I make. But yeah, I've always wanted to be talking about this stuff. I'm surprised that video that I got so many comments on became my second most viewed video within just a couple days. I'm freaking shocked by that. I'm just like dumbfounded, and I got a couple more subscribers, which thank you very much. Even if you don't agree with my point of view, you can still have fun with something and still love something. I just find these are the legitimate problems with the game, whether objective or subjective. But yeah, like, it's the reason I still come back to stuff like Skyrim and BioWare games. Like, I love them for that interactivity and those interesting worlds and characters. I just don't feel like the interesting world and character comes together or complements one another well enough in Cyberpunk. It's one of the weakest open worlds to me. Like, even Ubisoft worlds feel more alive somehow and have more interactivity, even though they still suck ass. Tasty. But I want to do more voice videos too. I'm going to be doing a Megatron Optimus Prime one with Fortnite soon, hopefully, as well as I got some other videos I want to do too. So I hope you enjoy those. I got a video where I want to talk about horror games. I want to talk about my experience with Morrowind as well, and my history with game consoles, because I'm sure people want to know, if they want to get to know me, what my favorite game consoles are, or if I pick a certain side on the game war. I don't care about the game war, though. You're going to know that immediately. That the game console war is nothing to me. It's actually cringe as hell. Who's coming up to me, by the way? I see somebody. Where are you? Hello? Oh, it's the Khajiit. It's the Khajiit Caravan. Hello. Yes. I left my character in front of my Yeek in Morrowind, by the way, last I knew. See, I love that. I get to see some characters I know hang out in certain places, or just walking by now. That's the other thing, is why doesn't Cyberpunk learn from other games by having the whole, like, characters react to the time of day? Like, if you go to Riften, and you see the store owners, like, they go to work at a certain time, and they work from a certain time as well. They have animations and discussions that reflect stuff. Characters look like they're buying from stores or deciding to buy in their animations, as well as they have a certain time they go to bed, or you see them go to bed, or a certain time they go to eat at a tavern or something, or whatever. Yeah, like, or walk from one part of the world to the other. Like, that's cool. And Skyrim's got horses, even though they control like ass. But it's there. And you have role-playing isn't just in your dialogue system. It is also in your how you play your character, how you create your character and stuff. So realize that too. Because I wanted to use the whole hot take stuff that Actman was talking about with Diablo 4 for that example, because he made that joke about, gee, I wonder what role I should play in this game. But yeah, I think that's all I have to add. Also, I did get a new Pop figure, and if PlayStation fans... First off, I record mostly on PlayStation nowadays, so the irony of you attacking me over this stuff. Second, I just recently got a Pop figure. I don't usually like Pop figures, but I was like, you know what? They kind of grew on me over the years, so I got a Bloodborne Pop figure recently, and now I can display this guy. That's dope. I don't have much Bloodborne stuff, and I absolutely love that game. That game's freaking awesome. And I always have a hard time, like, my personal favorite game is Dark Souls 1. I love Dark Souls 1. But Elden Ring and Sekiro, honestly, Sekiro I'm not as big a fan as other people are, but I can see why. And Bloodborne, like, Bloodborne and Elden Ring especially, like, I always have to do a double take on what game I like better, because I'm always like, I love Dark Souls 1, it's the best in the series. Oh, wait a minute, Bloodborne is really good, and it's got this and that, and then there's Elden Ring, it's got this and that. It's like, God damn it, From Software! Stop giving me reasons to like your other games! And, like, it's hard to beat the iconic lines and lore of games like Elder Scrolls. Like, you're never going to forget and find so fascinating the disappearance of the dwarves alone and the mystery around that in the Elder Scrolls universe. It's frickin' awesome. I love it. And I've been just recently ran into the only surviving dwarf member, too, within Morrowind recently, doing a quest. But yeah, I think that's everything I have to contribute to what I wanted to say over the Cyberpunk thing. If you have anything more to add, please do. I try to answer every comment. I may be snarky sometimes, but I try not to be rude, and I try to still say things that are informative or based. No. Or that are my points of view, or my opinion, or something. I mean, you got to share yours first, other than the video. Even though the video at the time was only 30 seconds long, and people were making a big hoot over it. I had to change the title even, because I got the lore bits wrong. But can you blame me? I didn't honestly remember that stuff, because of everything getting mixed together. Like, how am I supposed to remember that stuff? But whatever, they still had the whole message that I tried to make with the videos in general is just, where is life in the games other than civilians driving and such? We need a little bit more than that. These other games have that stuff, but why the frick don't you? You just seem like a game that should. It's weird. And none of it complements the rest of the game. It's all against one another in different ways and forms and whatever. So it's freaking pissing me off. But whatever. I hope you have an awesome day nonetheless. I will see you guys next time. I'm sorry that I've just been having my character stand here forever. I'll see you on the next video and or content. Goodbye, and have a awesome rest of the day.